So that's amazing that still works after nearly 30 years of existing with the same battery, never replaced. Hi, I'm Dan Umpton, and this is a special Doomcast, at a short series that we're going to do with my friend and fellow comedian, Damon Mando Tucker.
Hello.
He's a much bigger Mandalorian fan than I am. I'm a huge old school Boba Fett fan, so I'm familiar enough with the lore, and you kind of grew up on it like it was.
Yeah, I grew up with the Clone Wars, watched Rebels as an adult, so I'm very familiar with the struggles of the Mandalorians outside of the traditional canon of the films.
And for me, like, Rebels is a huge blind spot that I should have already watched. I'm probably going to binge it over the course of our filming this, but our plan is to show up every week. We're going to try and do that as soon after the original airing of an episode as possible. Just do a short recap and talk about what we're hoping for or expecting in the following episodes. Damon, do you want to start with just a quick setting and outset of the first episode?
Yeah, so the first episode, I think there's a lot of good stuff in here. There's a lot of Easter eggs for stuff that's referenced in the Clone Wars and in Star Wars Rebels. A few things that I'm excited that might happen, that we might see because of what we were kind of introduced to in episode 1. My boy Din, I don't know why he's making the decisions he's making, so let's talk about it.
They're a little extreme, and it's like I say, Rebels is kind of a blind spot for me. So like the most extreme and most quasi-religious or that I really got was like you get Bo-Katan and of course her sister in Clone Wars, and the related Mandalorian characters at the time. You get a lot of background on them, but they aren't zealots like in the same way. They're more political dogmatists.
Right. They're basically terrorists of Mandalore with some political ideology.
Yeah. Freedom fighters from one point of view.
The Death Watch is kind of a rebellious group, but the Children of the Watch that we see in The Mandalorian are far more dogmatic. The stuff we see with the keeping the helmet on, the weird underground thing, and the just kind of the whole attitude of the armorer is kind of a far cry from what we saw with Death Watch.
Right. To where it was a regular thing in Clone Wars, and I don't even know, was it ever a thing where it was like, for any Mandalorian or adjacent character where like removing your helmet was an issue? I don't recall that it ever had been. No,
that was introduced with the Children of the Watch. That the Mandalorian is the first time we saw anything like that.
And that was like the whole recap that you got at the very beginning, is that he'd taken his helmet off after his battle with Pre-Vizsla with the Darksaber, or had explained that to the armorer, and she was like, "Yeah, you're out. You're done. You're not a Mandalorian."
Yeah.
And their only option is to go
bathe in the springs beneath the mines of Mandalore,
which is a planet that's like effectively a sheet of glass now.
Yeah, effectively a sheet of glass. It's referenced a few times that maybe the planet is poisoned, or as the cult that Din is a part of, they keep referring to it as cursed. So that kind of adds that level of like mysticism and superstition that they have. So I mean, the episode opens with Din's clan, the Children of the Watch, relocated somewhere else. They're kind of rebuilding in a new location. They're doing some kind of initiation.
I don't think we get what planet that is either.
No, I don't think so.
Which that's fine.
So they've got a new enclave somewhere. They're doing an initiation for a new, presumably a foundling. It's a young kid.
Do you know who that actor was, by the way?
I
didn't
don't.
look that up.
I'm not going to lie. When the episode started, I thought this might be a flashback to Din's initiation.
Yep.
So we got the kind of a left turn there when they're attacked by a giant turtle alligator creature that I've never seen in Star Wars before.
I want them to call it an adamantoise, just because I'm a Final Fantasy dork, but
Right.
it'll work either way.
They're absolutely failing. They're getting destroyed by this thing. And they're saved by Din Djarin Ex Machina and his Naboo starfighter. And he just kind of just immediately destroys this thing that is messing with them. None of their blasters, none of their weapons. A few of them get eaten.
Yeah, nothing they did anything. And it felt like, like very much from the beginning of The Mandalorian has felt like Clone Wars scripts just filmed in live action. That they're effectively live action cartoons. And this was definitely one of those moments that reinforces that.
So, I mean, he saves them. He then goes to talk to the armorer to ask her about, some glass artifact that he got from some kind of vendor that
Supposedly went to Mandalore.
to him verifies that that you can go to Mandalore without being poisoned. She pretty much just tells him, you took off your helmet, so you're not welcome here, which is pretty funny coming from the chick who just tried to attack a giant Godzilla monster with a hammer. She went after it with a hammer, and she says that he's a disgrace to the Mandalorians because he took off his helmet.
It's very valiant, and I get it from like a warrior culture perspective. Like, look, this is the only weapon I have.
So, I mean, she essentially reiterates to him, you have to go beneath the mines of Mandalore, bathe in the springs if you're going to be redeemed. Also, that's totally impossible because the Empire destroyed Mandalore in the Purge. And that's why he showed her that glass artifact.
I mean, he basically gets her to admit that, like, yes, by creed, based on our, I don't know if we know if the creed itself is actually codified anywhere, like written down.
Right.
But whatever, based on our text or oral tradition, yeah, if you did this, you're back in. So, and initially, speaking of flashbacks, I thought that when she was making the armor, it was going to be for Grogu. And I was like,
I kind of had the same thing too when it was a small helmet.
I was pumped. I was like, they're doing it. He's going the route of the Mando, and he's gonna be the first Force wielding. I do hope that they eventually do that, where they have him like with the tiny helmet, but then he still has like a basket that's like MODOK, that's just tricked out with like just tons of weapons that just like.
I mean, he does have the mithril chainmail.
Little dude is, if they do that, he's going to be a heavy hitter, and it's going to be amazing. Anyway, okay.
Big time.
So he ends up leaving there and going to Navarro, which is like, I don't know how much time has passed, but clearly a lot.
Yeah. And importantly, on his way to Navarro, there's this short scene of the hyperspace travel. And I guess you could just sort of nap on cruise control, because that's what it seemed like Din was doing, was just having a snooze while he was in hyperspace. And while he's doing that, Grogu looks out the little dome, and he sees the Purrgil, the space whales, outside of their kind of hyperspace tunnel, which is a big Star Wars Rebel reference. That's a whole separate video in and of itself to discuss that.
I didn't know what those were, so thank you for filling me in.
So the basic gist of it was that they're creatures that consume essentially starship fuel, and then they also travel at hyperspace speeds. They were the impetus to the technology created for light speed travel.
Oh, wow. So, literally, the Star Wars universe uses whale oil to fuel their ships.
Kind of. In Star Wars Rebels, there's an episode where Ezra Bridger and company visit a fueling station, and the fueling station is run by some, kind of shady characters who are constantly fighting against these Purrgil, the space whales that are consuming the fuel that they use. And Ezra Bridger has kind of a connection with animals in a fun way, and he's able to essentially get a sense from them that they're not these malicious whales as they've been treated, and they sort of team up with them and,
Oh, great. Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
So the scene of showing them hints to potentially some tie-ins to how the Ahsoka series is going to be introduced, because Ahsoka has been on a mission to find Ezra Bridger, because where we're left off at the end of Rebels is Ezra and Thrawn and a bunch of Purrgil have zipped off into God knows where, and so
I need to watch this now. Damn. All right.
So Ezra Bridger, Sabine Wren, and Admiral Thrawn are all missing somewhere.
That's where that series ended?
Yes.
Damn, okay. All right.
So fun speculation in that hyperspace travel on the way to Navarro.
That's amazing. Jesus.
So yeah, as you said, at least enough time to completely rebuild Navarro into something much different than what it was before.
Yes. Much nicer, much cleaner. They very discreetly explain why Cara Dune is not there, and not gonna be.
She heard something about people using pronouns, compared that to being under the rule of the Empire, so they reassigned her somewhere else.
Special Forces. Special Forces, which is better than... it would have been hilarious if Carl Weathers was like, no, she's dead. Got eaten by a womp rat, actually. The most ignominious fate you could imagine. I don't know why that's my Carl Weathers voice. It's because that's specifically like the closest I can come to his character in Happy Gilmore, and nothing else that he's been. Anyway, whatever. All right. So also he has a sweet goatee, and he is a high magistrate and has some very nice robes and a couple
Sick
of droids droids carrying up the train of your robe, which is ridiculous.
The way they bounce down the stairs is pretty hilarious.
It's the entire trapping of it is like, this guy was...
It's unnecessary.
It's very over the top, but it's definitely like tracks with the character, having been just the guy who was kind of on the inside of the whole bounty hunter guild works, and somehow ended up accidentally in charge of a whole planet. Right.
And he's rebranded himself in the same way that he's kind of rebranded Navarro, because, as he's having they don't get to talk for very long before they're told that there are pirates that are causing some trouble. The pirates are trying to go into a school that it used to be the cantina, because they say that they want to drink. And, there's a whole showdown with them. The leader of the pirates draws his blaster, and Greef Karga proves to everyone that just because he's wearing fancy robes, he's no schlub. Pews the blaster right out of his hand before he even gets the chance, and the pirates are quickly eliminated and or disbanded. Only a few of them end up get away. But the mention of pirates, the introduction of pirates, gets me very hyped for potentially seeing Hondo in live action. Hondo is one of my favorite characters from the Clone Wars and from Rebels. I don't know if there's any way that really makes sense. Pirates are obviously a big and not necessarily conjoined faction of people, but the introduction of pirates makes me very excited that we might see Hondo at some point.
That's what I expect, because when they said, like, Pirate King Gorian Shand, first of all, I was like, do I know that guy from anywhere? But then and I don't know if he shows up in Rebels, but
I'm not aware of him, unless I've forgotten.
He looks basically like a Davy Jones Swamp Thing.
Yes,
which
that was all I was thinking.
I was like, you're definitely throwing out references here, and Disney, come on, you can't, but okay. But then, like, Vane also had me wondering, like, is he the same race as Hondo? So that's why I was wondering. I was like,
no, but there were pirates with him that were of the same species as Hondo, okay. Which I can't remember what the name of the species that Hondo is.
I couldn't either.
They're almost always pirates.
I mean, if you're on a pirate planet, like, you're probably gonna,
Yeah.
It's like the Anzellans are almost always tinkerers, which we get some of them when he, ends up like, and I don't know why he insists on getting IG-11.
He insists on getting IG-11 because he doesn't trust droids, because he's got the traumatic experience from his childhood with droids. Where his insistence really stopped making sense for me was, they gathered the pieces from the bronze bust of IG-11 that are still the remaining pieces of him, and he insists that he can fix him and he can bring him back. Now, this is a guy that's feared and despised droids his whole life. So it makes perfect sense that he's not able to successfully repair this droid, and instead reawakens a murder bot that immediately tries to kill Grogu.
First thing it does, and almost succeeds, and then immediately they're like, oh, shut it down, and he just blasts it. So, yeah, that was inexplicably silly to me, but okay.
What I thought was interesting was... so they start shooting at it, which, I mean, I feel like they should know is not going to put down this droid. It did self-destruct and walk through a pile of lava, a moat of lava.
Which it took the self-destruction and not the lava, notably,
to
actually take care of him. So, there's that.
But Greef Karga's protocol droid pushes over a bust of Greef Karga's head and then smashes it and stops it. Now,
what did they carve the bust out of? Because, anyway.
Good point.
Yeah.
Point being, a new robot had just saved Grogu by stopping the murder robot.
You have your droid companion right there.
Right. The real droids we can trust are the friends we made along the way, but not... Not for Din Djarin. He immediately ignores this poor protocol droid and says we need to figure out how to bring IG-11 back. Which leads us to the Anzellans, who were pretty fun. Anzellans are the same species as Babu Frick from...
what was the third?
From the Rise of Skywalker. Everyone's favorite part of that movie.
Okay, so clearly IG-11 is not happening, but he's got the parts of him, we assume.
So he's got the parts of him. What they tell him is that they need a memory circuit, which they no longer make. And he says, I'll find one. So we're on a similar theme here with Din, is that he's told this task that you want to achieve is impossible, and he says, I'm going to find a way to do it.
Yeah.
Even though there are other options available to him.
He's picking up a bunch of RPG fetch quests, is what's happening. In the process, they leave Navarro, get caught up with the pirates again.
Right.
And there's another cartoon, cool, but again, this is a live-action cartoon where he single-handedly takes out all of the pirates by flying them into asteroids or hitting them with what is the weapon that he's got on the Naboo starfighter?
That's a good question.
I'm trying to figure it out. Didn't the lady mention it? That refitted
Amy Sedaris character.
Yeah.
She may have. I don't know if I remember that
either. But I feel like she mentioned something. But like, we all know that it was like souped up from what it was.
Right.
Anyway, but yeah, he takes them out. You get to see Swamp Thing Gorian Shand briefly, and then he takes off.
Well, it's also very interesting and like you said, the sort of the cartoon logic of it. He's led into the trap of all the turrets of this much larger dreadnought type ship. And they tell him, surrender your ship and I'll let you live, which seems weird because they were just trying to kill him 5 seconds ago. Why not destroy him right now? What do they gain from taking his ship? Don't know. Clear. He says they've got a target lock on us. When he offers him, when Gorian Shand offers to let him live, he says to Grogu, never trust a pirate, and then sort of just zips away. And the target lock comment seems redundant. They miss him all the way, and he sort of just zips away. Now, the comment of never trust a pirate, again, made me think of Hondo.
Which...
He's a guy that you cannot trust, but you so badly want to, and so I want Hondo. More than anything.
That line there made me wonder if there was some kind of back interaction or backstory where he had encountered Hondo at some point.
Right.
Because I'm also a big Hondo Ohnaka fan. I wonder... because that's actually who I was expecting that they were going to pop up instead, like that he'd just taken a different name and you're going to be like, oh. But the silliness of that, like they're telling, like, is there still a bounty out on Grogu? I assume there still has to be by the remnants of the Empire.
Well, so I am not sure if there is, because the person who would have that bounty, who would be able to pay up on that bounty, would be Moff Gideon, who, again, in that brief conversation
in front of a war tribunal
that we had about Cara Dune, was said that to be in the custody of the New Republic. So he would have no way of paying up that bounty. I think really, unless some bounty hunter or pirate was really holding out hope that they could, that Moff Gideon would somehow be freed and therefore could pay up on the bounty. It just didn't, I don't think that would be a good use of anybody's time.
Yeah,
but,
no, so that's probably out of the question then.
I mean, really, anyone trying to take out a Mandalorian just for the ability to salvage the Beskar, probably.
That makes sense. That makes sense, and I suppose Grogu would be valuable to somebody if they knew what he was.
Yeah.
Or at least vaguely what he was.
If they knew that there was interest from Empire remnants. They're not non-valuable hostages or prisoners to take to anyone. Final scene is where they go to one of the planets in the Mandalore system where Bo-Katan has built a castle, or possibly just, commissioned an existing castle, but the look and feel of it is very similar to the main throne room that the previous rulers of Mandalore have sat on. So the same throne that Pre-Vizsla sat on when he held the Darksaber, and then when Darth Maul took his place and sat there as well. So it looks very, very similar to that. But then we see Bo-Katan kind of just all alone.
Just hanging out.
On the throne.
Sitting malevolently on the throne.
But either way, the aesthetic of it was clearly very similar to that, but definitely not the same place, given that the Siege of Mandalore must have destroyed that.
It could be this. I mean, it could have been moved. But yeah, it's like the whole castle style and everything, even down to the droid. The droid looked like a weird combo of like a K2, like the Imperial security droids, but also not. So I wonder, I don't know.
Yeah, which the droid said nothing, just kind of looked at him.
Yeah,
on his way in. Honestly, this part was a little bit confusing as to why Din Djarin even went there, except because it kind of felt like the initial request that he made ended up being a throwaway as to more of just like, well, I still want to just go to Mandalore, because he came and he said, I would like to join you, which is an offer that she extended to him pretty much when they first met, but has never really been talked about again. She tells him that she has no followers because she doesn't have the Darksaber, and asks him if he still has it, which he says yes.
Of course.
She says, then go find the people that abandoned me. Wave that thing around in front of them. They'll follow you.
That's got to be some foreshadowing, too.
Yeah. He, again, seems to have no interest in any of that, and just repeats that he needs to visit the surface of Mandalore and bathe beneath the mines, in the springs. He says that he's going to find out if that planet is poisoned or not. She says, be my guest. And she kind of leaves it on an ominous goodbye, Din Djarin, as if I'm not going to see you again. But what I thought was interesting is what we see Bo-Katan experiencing in that moment is, this is kind of what happens when you think you have a plan. You're going to end up being the ruler of nothing, and everyone will leave you. If you think you know what you're doing, maybe adjust to the circumstances instead of having a plan and being stuck to that plan, because what she wanted was to retrieve the Darksaber and rule over Mandalore and bring it back to all its glory. Whereas
Which is
similarly,
a whole trap in that whole history, that like, you can't organize your people because of this stupid sword. Like, you can't organize anything politically because of a dumb, which is, I mean, it isn't dumb. Like the reason for it and its introduction, everything, like all of this makes sense. Anyway, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, all it takes is a trained Sith to come in and then challenge you to your to your right to rule, and then you've got Darth Maul running
with an astonishingly on-the-nosely named brother, who is subsequently murdered very easily.
Yep.
Anyway, yeah, it's all very silly.
So,
but I love it.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the parallels between what kind of how rigid Din seems in his convictions on how he plans to do the things he's doing now, which is not out of character for him. He's been very much like, you know, he's raised in a dogmatic kind of cult, and they say, take this kid to the Jedi. That's what he's one of. He doesn't know anything about what the Jedi are or what they do. He thinks that they're a race, and he just says, well, I need to return them to their people because that's what the armorer, who sounds like a female Hannibal Lecter, told me to do.
Yeah. Which it's funny that also it's not like Katie Starbuck Bo-Katan isn't like already very much a real hardliner, but like even she's calling his crew a cult,
right?
And that like you can tell his understanding of, there are some things where he's just like, he's got a lot of practical knowledge about the rest of the galaxy and the universe and the world, and there is some wisdom there in a lot of things, but there's a lot of things where it's just like, yikes, you are astonishingly, like, you're afraid of droids in a universe where they are incredibly prevalent. Like, you're also super I don't know. You know, he is very dogmatic. Like, you're like, well, I'll go to Mandalore then. Like, which is the whole center of this. So anyway, predictions for second episode. I don't think we're going to get to Mandalore right away, first of all.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think Din's next steps, based on the information that he collected in episode 1 and what he's planning to do, is he's going to try to find a memory circuit for IG-11. I think we have not seen the last of the pirates. I feel like those will be especially Gorian Shand, you know, they call him the Pirate King. I think he's probably going to be a big bad of this season, but I know for sure we haven't seen the last of Moff Gideon, but I kind of feel like he will maybe reappear later in the series as the actual villain, because there's no way that pirates are going to be the biggest of the bads. They're always a kind of secondary thorn in the side.
You're already doing the Joseph Conrad, like, hey, here's the call to adventure. Now we're doing the journey underground, like literally, because he's going to go underneath the planet at some point into the mines of Mandalore. And there's going to be some sort of like Messiah moment where I wonder if he's going to unite everything, like both factions with the sword, like by like, I've cleansed myself and also I have the Darksaber, so Children of the Watch and Death Watch and all of the disparate other Mandalorians,
right,
you're all under me, and I don't know what we'll get from there. Like, we'll see.
Yeah, I'm hoping to see more Bo-Katan. I think that her story is like super compelling. I was excited in season 2 when she showed up. I don't really think you can have a satisfying conclusion to whatever happens big time on Mandalore without bringing her there. But again, she's got her own set of superstitions as well. A lot of what they think happened with the Siege of Mandalore and all the problems that the Mandalorians experienced during the fight against the Empire really comes down to the fact that she no longer had the Darksaber and therefore no longer had the right to rule Mandalore.
You speculated that Moff Gideon might come back and be the ultimate big bad of big bads. That's still possible, but I also wonder if she's going to become a major antagonist at this point also. The other thing I don't think we ever got from Moff Gideon was specifically other than one, how the hell did he get the Darksaber? Did we ever get into that?
So actually, we don't know a lot about the Siege of Mandalore. It's basically just been referenced mostly in this series. Not a lot of. I think something in the sequel trilogy may have referenced it, but kind of offhandedly. But for the most part, we basically just know that Mandalore was not a system that wanted to submit to the rule of the Empire, and they go to extreme measures in order to deal with that kind of problem.
Yeah. I mean, we get like scenes of seeing like the TIE bombers going over and dropping what looked like a nuke or worse on a very much excoriated already surface of a planet. So it's, yeah, I mean, it looks like they did a pretty thorough job in the little flashback. So I wonder exactly how that's going to go. I also wonder if like underneath the planet, like, is there a crew of people like Mandalorian super mutants or just like mutated from the Fallout and like fed on like religious dogma that are just like nut jobs, but also super, I don't know.
That actually is a really good point, because if Din is correct and that the planet is not poisoned and that is sort of a superstition or some kind of misinformation that got out there, and we know that there are things beneath the surface that are places that people could have retreated, that means that there's almost certainly people still there.
Yeah. And the possibility of a functioning man, and it would be flipping wild if Moff Gideon was somehow connected to those people that remain. That would be wild. I don't know. We don't have anything to go on but speculation though.
Any predictions on what's going to happen with Grogu and what we might see develop with him?
I hope the little dude gets some armor. I hope he ends up becoming a Mandalorian. I hope he ends up being able to be like a Mando / Jedi. Mm-hmm. That there's like a quasi like, because it's already, I mean, the similarities, but also like historical antagonism between the two, like, warrior factions exists. So it would be interesting to see somebody that's like a hybrid, you know, where I hope that they keep his race a mystery.
I hope so too.
A mystery.
I'm leaning towards we probably won't see much of the blend of the Jedi stuff and the Mandalorian stuff this season, or maybe just like a kind of teasing that again at the end of it. That seems to be the trend. But I think that at some point Din and Ahsoka will have to cross paths again. I feel like this is the series where they're going to introduce some sort of crossover to hype up the Ahsoka series, which I'm also very excited for. And I feel like Grogu's got to be a key factor in whatever leads the two of them together, especially with him seeing the Purrgil out in hyperspace and kind of indicating that he had some kind of connection to them, maybe similar to the way that Ezra Bridger did. And I have a feeling that Moff Gideon has some kind of ties to Admiral Thrawn. I feel like really if there's any remnants of the Empire that still exist post-Empire, Admiral Thrawn has to be at the crux of that. I don't feel like it can really...
They are doing a series, right? Of Thrawn?
Thrawn will be the main antagonist of the Ahsoka series, from what I've seen.
Yeah, I wondered about that. I feel like that's... But that's going to be really likely then. I mean, considering all of these are like interconnected in the same way that you're... I mean, at some point they have to start turning this into a film series, right? Because I mean, if they're going to like necessarily do anything after, you know, the Force Awakens trilogy, it's going to have to be Mando related somehow.
I mean, maybe. I don't know that we've seen the Star Wars and like Lucasfilm branch of Disney show the same kind of ambition to really take the series and then have movies that have anything to do with it follow them in the way that Marvel has. So I'm not sure that they really have that same kind of like framework for how they want to do films. They tend to make a movie and then go, oh, we really liked this thing that happened here. Let's make Andor because I'm not totally sure if they want to take it to movies. It would definitely be cool.
I would be good with it. I mean, if they ever decided to do a finale, I would be thrilled with a one-off like film.
Right.
But I'm happy with what they're doing TV-wise. I mean, it's the better... They're definitely out of the stuff that Disney Plus is putting up.
Yeah.
I like all of the Star Wars stuff better than I do any of the Marvel stuff. Sorry, I know that sounds like heresy for me, but it is not, and I'm not an apostate, which is the title of the first episode that we just reviewed.
Helmets off.
So, I suppose from here we'll be back later in the week, and hopefully every week, on episode 2. And we'll continue on. So thanks everybody for checking this out. I appreciate you. I'm Dan Upton.
And I'm Damon Tucker.
We will see you later this week and next week. Peace.